card.
Welcome to the Fashion Code. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Love.
And this is episode 3. Let's get started. So we have our first guest, and his name is Ryan Yip. You might know him. You might know this impeccable fashion TikTok creator and storyteller. If not, you will after this. As a recent graduate of UBC, Ryan Yip found his footing with fashion storytelling. Ryan is also a journalist, analyst, and digital marketing expert, while using his natural talent for telling lesser-known fashion stories. Ryan aims to build community to a niche audience. Welcome. So excited to have you.
What is up? Thank you. I know I'm equally excited to be on this, to do this podcast with you guys.
You have the mic, you have the setup, like, let's go. I'm really excited.
Yeah, because I used to do podcasts too.
Oh, really? Oh, you're set.
Yeah, like mainly on my own. I used to do podcasts on like watches and whiskeys, where I talk about watches and whiskey.
Yeah, you have a podcast voice. You have to give us some pointers, because we're just starting out. You have like the whole vibe going.
I'm super amateur, super beginner as well. That's why I stopped it, because it was not going anywhere.
But at least, I mean, you found your footing on TikTok, though. Like, that's amazing. Sure. I was like, dang, like, he got up to like 30,000 followers in like 4 months. Like, I swear I like, you've been on this for like more than 4 months. Like, I was like, only 4 months? Like, that's insane. So, like, it's really amazing.
Thank you. Well, I mean, technically, I tried to make content earlier in like January, but they're not like planned out until like later in March, which is a really interesting story, because somewhat randomly on Instagram DM'd me saying that, hey man, I like your content on Instagram, you should really tap into TikTok. And I was like, I tried, even with my podcast before, I tried making TikTok, but it just never gotten any traction. And he like gave me pointers, like do this, do this, do this. And I was like, I mean, I've tried these strategies before, but okay, I will try again. And and then I went onto TikTok, made the Vivienne Westwood tartan pattern video, and that video like got like 20,000 views, and I was like, holy shit, this is like so amazing out of nowhere. I didn't change anything, essentially. And then that person DM'd me, never interacted with my account anymore.
Wow.
Like, it was like
Fallen angel.
Actually weird. Yeah, it was actually really weird, because I've never seen this person's name pop up on my Instagram notification anymore. He never liked anything anymore. Just
niche switch.
Stopped interacting.
Just a whole new horde of people.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, divine intervention that told me to do TikTok.
Literally, just like some type of spirit that took over the web and like was like, I'm gonna target Ryan today. That's insane.
Yeah.
But that's actually really good though, because like, Vivienne Westwood has been like talked about, like I guess like she's like coming back as a conversation, like this past like again in this past like years,
we have like a pump rebirth.
Yeah, so it was like perfect timing, honestly. Yeah.
Actually.
Now here we are on a fashion podcast. Let's get to the fashion.
So let's get started with Grunge or Gross. So I'll explain it to you, even though we've kind of already explained it to you. But I'll explain it to you. So Grunge or Gross is basically a segment that we coined or named as Grunge or Gross, and where we just basically come up with a few topics and, see if we like it, which is grunge, or if we don't, which is gross. And, it shouldn't be a trend, or we should just get rid of it, right? So we talk about our point of views on those specific topics. So yeah, we can get started. First one is Kanye West. And honestly, just Kanye West overall, like what's been going on with, the rest of the fashion world sleeping and taking a vacation and getting ready for Milan Fashion Week, while he is in all black and black sweatshirt and black boots in 90-degree weather, going around basically doing pop-ups all over the U.S. for Yeezy's Gap. So yeah, I mean, that was, I can't go lie. Like, the marketing was grunge. The marketing was grunge.
Okay, first of all, I gotta say that we do talk about Kanye every week, not on purpose, just because it's really interesting. I have affinity for Kanye, but like, that's a whole nother story. I think like this whole wave that he's been doing, like people are grabbing their clothes out of these buckets and like
for free.
whole community vibe, and everybody's like dressing almost culty. Like it's very cult like. It's very cult like, can't lie. But I kind of love it. It's refreshing. It's almost boring, you know. It's not like anything super insane, and like everybody's doing it. So it's, I don't know, it's different. It's different, and I feel like he's gonna come out with something wow, you know, pretty soon. He's dropping. Okay.
Sorry. Oh, I was gonna say I personally loved it a lot, especially the whole dumpster diving drop, easy gap, because one thing I'm not sure. It's just an observation, all the speculation is that there's just like bird eye view of a bunch of dumpster and with easy gap, right? And then people are like just ruffling around looking for clothes, right? And that is maybe like a narrative of what fashion is like right now. Everyone's like super desperate to like find the thing in even dumpster. So that's an really interesting thing to me to see. And also someone pointed out that the day Easy Gap dropped was a 1 year anniversary of the whole like Donda concert thing. So it was like a setup the whole time. So Kanye West has always been a marketing genius to me. I don't think the clothes are specifically innovative, but the whole phenomenon was grunge.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, you're right about the marketing thing though, especially with Demna and Gap. Like, if you think about it as a whole, there's not been like one marketing flop there in the last couple of years. Maybe Gap like 4 years ago, but that's not their fault. So,
yeah.
I think honestly, I find it interesting. Well, 2 points I find interesting is that what I noticed is that he's creating full on like eras for himself. Like, this is the Donda era. Like the past 2 to 3 years, we've been in the Donda era. Actually, 2 years we've been in the Donda era, right? So he'll probably close this era with something super crazy next year, and that's it. Then he will move on to something else, right? Then he'll find inspiration somewhere else. But the dumpster diving thing, I actually noticed that, I don't know if you guys have seen those like TikTok and Instagram posts and Twitter posts where people are going in the back of like Marshall's dumpsters or like Home Goods dumpsters and like Bath and Body Works dumpsters and finding like things that they just throw away when people return them and they're like brand spanking new. And I think he probably got that, the concept of doing a dumpster dive, and then just basically adding on meaning within like the fashion world from that. That just because that mean that like people are going to post about it regardless. Like, dang, like, I mean, you're giving out like it's free clothing. Like if you make it to the pop up and stuff like that, right? But like that whole concept, I'm like, this was on social media for like a year. It was like a whole thing for people to like make videos of them going and picking like stuff that's perfectly good that were in dumpsters. So I don't know. I think the little details, like bringing it all together, I don't know. It's just all insane. I think it's just like quite fascinating.
Well,
it is really fascinating.
Like he never stops. Like STEM player, Donda, like this is going on. Well, the Demna thing, and then this is going on, and now pastel. Like color has to come soon. Like bright colors and vibrance has to come back soon.
Yeah, pastel's gonna come. I feel like that's going to be the new era. Is he's going to do something in regard to like children and like something fresh and young like next.
Yeah. These kids are like little gothy. Like, right?
Wait, but isn't pastel like been around for some time now? I mean, the trend of pastel with the birth of like Jaded London and all ASOS and stuff like that. Like that was like whole.
You mean the color?
Pastel.
No, we're talking.
Are you talking about the color?
No, we're not talking about the color.
Oh, my bad.
So,
my bad.
Pastel is a brand that Kanye made back in graduation.
Like 2008. Well, he wore, so his daughter Northwest wore the same pastel jacket he wore in the 2008 AMAs to receive his award during Paris Fashion Week like a month ago, right? And it became like this whole thing, like it's pastel pop probably coming back. And it's very like retro, like colorful, like bomber, right? So we're like, maybe he's going to do something, bring on a whole new era and, basically have something fun and young. And then a friend of mine told me that he assigned Ian Connor as creative director for pastel.
Okay, hold on. Okay, thank you for educating me on that. I don't know why I didn't know that. But wait, wasn't Ian Connor didn't he get into like a super controversial moment like a year ago or something?
Yeah, we're not
like
gonna
that?
get.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a little questionable.
Yeah, it's actually been for the past few years because I grew up like I was in college when Ian Connor was like
Yeah.
popular. Like it was like he was like the it guy, right? So and then all of those allegations, you know, started coming out, and I was like,
Well, okay, hold on. Kanye has been raising up a lot of interesting characters recently because of his whole like rebirth and like everybody should get a second chance and cancel culture is like irrelevant. So the Marilyn Manson and the baby and all these things. So maybe Ian Connor fell into that wave.
Him and the whole Drake concert. You know, him forgiving Drake for some reason. Okay, but yeah. So he's probably on just like a whole like a new like thing. But I'm like, I don't know. We always worry about his health because he never stops. But we're not gonna get into that. Yeah.
That's true.
Right now it's grunge. Until it actually affects me personally, it will not be gross.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Okay, so grunge or gross. Beat the Birkin up Birkin versus a collection of Birkins never used Birkins.
I like beat up Birkin. Just because like it's so grungy. It's like why pay so much? You know what I mean? And honestly, I would never have like more than like I don't know. Maybe because I'm not that rich, so I can't understand what it would be like to have like a ton of fancy things locked away somewhere, pristine condition. Like I want to show that off. I don't know.
I like the beat the Birkin up idea too, because as you mentioned just now, I mean pre-recording, I mean a lot of people are like glorifying the idea of like collecting Birkins, and that kind of like defeat the purpose of having it so well made, right? Like great quality leather, right? And then tying the beat the Birkin up Birkin idea to like let's say vintage watches. A lot of these things, right? People wear it, but what gives it character is all the different scratches, right? Stories you can tell. Oh, this big scratch like came from this or this and that. Like it gives experience. So what's the point of buying something so pristine and premium only to put it up on a shelf and not actually use it and immerse yourself in the experience, right? So I think beat the Birkin up Birkin is, you know, over collecting Birkins.
Yeah, I think the reason why people started collecting Birkins like crazy or wanting to get their hands on a Birkin is when they finally realized that it's a good investment. Like the word investment became like, oh, I can keep this and hold this and then resell it. But I feel like the best time to even collect a Birkin is when it's a very rare Birkin. That's when it should be collected, put up in an air-conditioned storage. You know, like Beyonce said, kind of, slightly her words. But the whole purpose of having a Birkin, you know, and for them to like basically limit their production is for you to have one and know that you can afford another one when the time comes. Like it's a work bag. It's not a nice purse to hold and take to brunch or a club. Like, it's not one of those places. It is a bag to use constantly. If you're constantly working, you're constantly running errands. It's literally that type of bag. That's why it's a quiet luxury brand. Yeah, that's what it's been giving. But it's like, I don't know, even in the car world, like Porsches are known to be like, you're new, you just made your first million. That's what Porsches are like literally meant for. So that's why like I feel like it went like the Birkin bag went from being a Rolls Royce, like you can't touch this bag, to being you just made your first million, let me go get a Birkin. Like people have been making it feel that way, and I'm like, no, let's not make it feel that way. So.
No, you can't, because if you think about it, you remember when I think Louis Vuitton was sending Gucci bags to like Snooki to make Gucci look bad? You remember that?
Yeah.
I feel like with Kanye West giving Birkins to his girlfriends when he breaks up with them, is he like I don't know. I'm not gonna go push farther on that thought, but I'm just gonna put that out there.
Yeah. We'll think about it.
Maybe he's gonna drop a luxury bag line. I don't know.
Maybe. Oh, then he already sees himself as a god. So at this point, nothing can stop him. Okay, he will go at it with them.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but
probably Yether. Yeah,
but let's say he dropped a bag line, right? Yeah. Like people's association with his bags, like the feeling people have towards his bags, luxury bags versus like Birkin be drastically different.
Oh yeah.
Because Birkin is lightweight, so
But not
I don't know how that's
Balenciaga.
gonna turn out. I don't know about Balenciaga, man. I don't know. It's a really confusing brand sometimes to look at.
It's yeah. Okay, we can. I would get into it, but we're not going to get into it.
They eat in the rich, but I'm not there yet. So
Yeah.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Mirapollet.
Yes, Grunge or Gross, Mirapollet, specifically, Marcelo Gaia speaks up on the issue. Dupes for everything, pretty much. Quote, dupes for everything. Like, that's what I coined it. So he actually, like, not even 12 hours ago, made a video on the problem or it's just basically speaks out as an independent designer on his work being replicated. It's not even a dupe at this point. It's basically just stealing his original design and creation and then making a cheaper version of it for like what, $1.50, and then selling it for $17 on Amazon, on AliExpress, or any other, like big website like that, right? And he's selling it for $500. Yet people feel like they have the audacity to tell an independent designer how much he should, basically price his items, right? When he puts so much work into it and actually puts in, he sources ethical fabrics to create something that is supposed to last for years. So I feel like the mismatch of fast fashion and what's supposed to be a quality product is getting a little too blended, or people are not educating themselves or understanding what that is supposed to mean. So it's definitely gross on my point. I find it irritating. He's not selling to you, so it's not meant for you,
Yeah, I think it is gross. I'm anti bullshit and fast fashion, but we fall into the trap of fast fashion. It's hard not to. So I think coming from a designer or even a business owner perspective, you have to be able to protect your IP, protect your product, protect your rights, essentially, and that's something you have to think about right away, especially when you're coming in as a social media front, product. Yeah, you can be mad at it, but you know how the world works, so you kind of have to put blocks in place to prevent that from happening.
Mm-hmm. It's like the people want to create this notion of accessibility, everything should be accessible to us, but not everything should be accessible to us, and I don't know. I feel like if it's...
Who's going to stop AliExpress? Accessibility, exactly what you said. Who's going to stop them?
Yeah, definitely gross. I mean, whatever you guys just said is exactly my thought. But the thing is, how can you effectively, as an independent designer, how do you effectively protect yourself from this? It's really hard, right? Unless you go the distance to specifically combat this particular form of theft, then it's really hard for you to just, prevent these companies, fast fashion companies, from copying your design, as opposed to them just targeting bigger brands.
Yeah.
Right? What's your opinion on that?
Well, what's the brand Fashion Nova always steals? It starts with an L. It's like a guy, starts with an L, who wears lots of bodysuits, makes lots of bodysuits. Anyways, Fashion Nova always steals from him, and the problem is that his brand identity is the exact thing that Fashion Nova makes and wants and sells to, right? It's just at a way lower price point. So it's realistically, you don't have the same customer. Somebody that's buying your $500 outfit is not the same person ordering 50 outfits on Fashion Nova for the same price, right? It's completely different customer. So I think you really have to know your demographic and kind of work with it there, maybe to protect yourself. Because I've had art stolen from me before, but I know it was my mistake because I didn't have a watermark on it. I just put it up online knowing that anybody can just come and get it. So yeah, when you put clothes out, somebody can buy the clothes, take it apart and remake it. That's the name of the fashion game. Even designers or runways, we see people stealing from runways and doing another runway with the same item.
Yeah. Marcelo actually posed up another point about, people were like, oh, is it even legal? And sadly, it is, right? we're going to get into the topic of like trademarks and like, you know, ownership and protection. But sadly it is, you know, like the US, like he posed the question of like, why is it that the US only protects artwork on garments and not actual silhouettes, right? They have, you know, you have rights when it comes to textiles, but like then making the fabric, it's all blended, right? So then that you know, like basically meshes up the legal rights to anything. But when it comes to like artwork or fine art, any other form of art, contemporary artists and stuff, they have, you know, you can basically submit a copyright and all of that stuff, right? But when it comes to fashion design, the waters are still very much muddy because they actually pose the number of 40% of that creative process to 20%. So where is the designer actually protected from their actual, you know, of that actual silhouette that they, you know, created? So like that problem even needs to be solved, because how are we going to move from how the fashion, like the traditional fashion industry is like currently working now when it comes to designers not just basically being replicated, to how that's going to fold into like the digital world, you know?
But I think if, let's say, there are more laws on protecting silhouettes, right? I think that would also indirectly hurt the industry, because let's say runway, right? Fashion houses, they're probably, let's say between two shows, there are probably like 5 designs that are like similar to each other. So can they legally sue each other and be like, you know, be like, no, I did this first, right? So it's like kind of convoluted in that sense, if it's just if there are laws to protect silhouettes.
Yeah, and
right?
that's why I said it's like it's still muddy waters. Like, how is that even going to be, you know, solved? Especially when like the industry even creates themes for different fashion weeks that essentially will build a trend for people to follow, right? Like I forgot, I think it was Men's Spring Fashion Week where they were doing like the cowboy thing. A lot of the brands can follow it, and it became a pattern, right? So. I don't know. I think it's just very muddy waters. Like it's hard to like really address unless we get like some lawyer. But after reading so much on the fashion law, it's like, yeah, it's just really hard to digest. But I still find it very gross.
And even then, unless you have the money to go through a lawsuit, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to pay for that lawsuit and actually get anywhere with it. And I think with the silhouette, every piece, every garment essentially starts off with like a base box or a basic shape. You know, that's like how you learn fashion and design. You learn the basic shapes first and you build upon it. Just like every other art with painting, drawing, you learn the basics and you design on top of that. And the only thing that then becomes original is your quote unquote spin on it. And I think we're dealing with this in the music industry right now a lot as well, is people taking inspiration but not crediting. So I think as long as you give the credits, it's fine. And let's say you don't give a credit, then you need to be socially educated or like penalized in some way, because legally there's no way to get there.
Yeah.
Unless you're a big company.
It's really.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it for Grunge or Ghost. All right. So this rolls over. Well, the last conversation rolls over to now our burning questions, which aren't really burning questions, a series of questions, but not the main topics of questions. So this rolls over into ownership and the blockchain. And this we're going to talk about trademark rights and how that is being adjusted and ruled as, and everything that's going on within that sector in the US and in other countries. So yeah. Let's get started. So there have been a few things that have become issues within the digital fashion space. And first, it has really started with trademark rights. And it actually really began with Metabirkins by this guy named Mason Rothschild, which is not his real name, but his just like, you know, artist name, stage name, right? And what's funny is that he created a collection of Metabirkins based off of what's that rapper's name? Gunna, based off of a Gunna song, not actually based off of like the, you know, Birkins himself, right? So he first made a baby Birkin, a literal fetus in a Birkin bag. Like that was like the first ever creation that he did, right? And it was like literally a fetus, like drawn on the Birkin bag, right? But they're not physical Birkins; they're all digital, right? And then I think he was able, in the initial auction, he was able to get to like $47,000. So some guy won. And at the final closing of the auction was $47,000, right? So now it's accumulated in price as of like, I think it was like May of last year when he had that. So, I'm pretty sure like Hermes wasn't really watching him. They're like, oh, it's like a one-off art thing. But then when he was like that became so popular, and Vogue was talking about it. I think Wired magazine was talking about it. Everybody was just talking about how that went, right? Even Forbes. And then he decided to create a 100 Metabirkin collection, right? And that's when the trouble started. So after I think he was able to make like $1 million. I think about $1 million in the first round of the auction for the first collection of the 100 Metabirkins. Hermes started knocking on his door saying that he can't do that, but he could. According to his First Amendment rights, that he didn't specifically use. It's not exactly like the physical Birkin, and it's essentially all digital. They didn't create Hermes Birkin, didn't create any of it. Hermes didn't create any of the Birkins that he created, and they aren't directly just like the actual Birkin, right? So now he's currently still in court with them on how to essentially settle that. But essentially, the judge is saying that since they had no digital trademark rights that for the Birkin, for a digital Birkin, there's really not much that they can do. So he kind of won, and he doesn't have to, settle it, close down the Birkin account. He can still profit from them, right? So he's still in court with that situation going on, but they said that also the situation of him having Birkin within the word Metabirkin, which is actually one word in total, is also infringing on that trademark, right, that they have, right?
Reach. That's a reach.
Yeah.
It's hella reach.
Put letters together. There's 26 of them. Right?
Yeah, but isn't this like the same situation as what we just talked about, like independent designers, like them not having trademarks so companies can do whatever they want, and then now this dude Metabirkin's like, oh, you don't have digital trademarks.
Yeah,
so.
But it's what's so crazy is that he's not actually he's an artist, so it's supposed to be like an artwork. You know how like Louis Vuitton, they saw that design. Artists were putting Louis Vuitton logos and bags on all of their stuff, right? And really starting with Dapper Dan. At first, all that stuff was illegal back then, right? But they started to embrace it, and they don't sue artists for putting a Louis Vuitton inspired bag on an artwork. Wait,
what about Campbell's soup? You know the Campbell's soup, the famous.
Oh yeah,
Campbell's
that
soup?
was essentially part of. I actually talked about that a few months back, but that was part of that whole situation of Andy Warhol creating Campbell's soup cans, creating art from the Campbell soup cans. It was actually dubbed that he could. So
and everybody loved it. Was it just because he was a popular white guy, or
that was what made him popular?
But wait, but I think there's a slight difference though. So let's say you in relation to the LV situation, also Andy Warhol situation, they are creating an art piece with the product in it, right? So essentially, I guess they can argue that people are buying this art piece not because of the Campbell soup can.
Yes.
Right? They like the way, right? But with the Metabirkin situation, I guess the digital art of it is just it's selling the design of the Birkin.
Because they're all different.
Am I right?
He's actually just send you pictures.
So I was in the Discord when this first came up in the world, and I was like, "Oh, is it Birkin?" And then I looked, and I'm like, "No, it's just a regular project because NFT people knock stuff off all the time." It was the whole premise of it, right? Take a cartoon or you take whatever, and then you recreate it as your own creation. So I understood the concept easily. Now, if I understood whether they would get away with it or not, because people are investing their money in it, right? So now, let's say you lose money. Is he liable? No, because it's an NFT. Or is it going to backlash on Birkin, right? And be like, oh, wow, we lost all our money. Birkin, this digital Birkin that has nothing to do with Birkin. So I think because NFTs are new, blockchain technology is new, and people didn't really know how to deal with it, and it's more a rights issue than anything. And now, obviously, that Birkin knows that this exists, and every other large company knows that this exists. They're protecting their rights. Everybody started getting digital rights immediately when this happened. They're like, oh, we can't let this happen to us and start losing money, which is hilarious.
And
Yeah, but like it. Sorry, I was gonna say like for. I feel like I'm just looking at pictures of the Metabirkin. It's just like tiny little Birkin bags with like different designs on it, right? And that's essentially what Hermes does in real life, right? Birkin bag, design on it, sell it. But in terms of like the Campbell soup thing, they sell. I mean, obviously it's part of their design, but the content is the soup, right? So I guess people are kind of okay with it because they're not necessarily. I mean, Andy Warhol's not necessarily copying the real content of
But
Is that
Campbell
in the
soup.
leather?
exactly, like it's
Is
the
it
Sorry.
in the leather, the physical part of it, and then the digital would just be like,
because
Yeah,
even,
but like,
even
but-
so like even
Sorry, go
this
ahead.
like even Metabirkins, like he hasn't created anything where it wasn't like a piece that you can. It would have been different if it was a piece that you can actually wear in a
like it was
metaverse.
actually like a piece of fashion,
Yes, like the
Okay.
little Burberry collection that they have in Fortnite, right? And he's actually selling it on Fortnite for digital avatars to wear around. That would have been different. But it is basically a 3D, like 3D picture, or, that basically, that's an artwork that
It's
has,
like he drew a picture of a Birkin.
it had a
He
freaking
sold
mammoth
it.
Birkin. Like it's out of the shape at that point. It's way out of the shape of like the actual
Okay.
Birkin itself. Like yes, there's there's like that like design, but then think about it though.
Would
A
regular
lot
Birkins-
of a lot of fashion houses have like the same type of like design for a lot of things, right? I don't know if you've seen like those like picnic and net bags that like for like Chloe and Celine
Glass
and
bags.
Fendi has. It's the exact same shape, but they just basically
Oh.
splatter their name on it, right? So him doing this and it's just like an artwork, you can't even use it in the digital world. That would have been different because that means you're actually like putting it out for them to wear digitally too, then it would have been a little bit more muddy, right? But they still wouldn't have done anything because they have no digital trademark. So yeah.
Okay, I get you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
And then honestly, you know what's so funny? I was reading the article that Vogue had versus like the fashion law had. The fashion law, they basically said that once this man started making money from it, they didn't have an issue. Hermes did not have an issue with the initial fetus Birkin until he started
Until they
he said,
started
"Oh,
making money.
he running up the check on this one. Let's say you have no right to make money off of us." Like no.
Yeah.
Or give us a percent. Like we own 14% of.
No, knowing that family, they're gonna tell them to take it off, take it down, like all together. So, yeah, like it's yeah. So basically, like that right now, that this case is actually going to set a precedence as to like how the rest of like the digital world, or like basically rights within the metaverse and within like the and within Web3 is going to take, like how the consumer market is going to really take, like e-commerce is really going to take on within Web3, right? So, and then I even forgot my point right now. I forgot
I'm
my
done
point.
with this. I'm done with this topic though. It's making me mad. I'm like done with this topic.
Like,
Oh,
I mean,
it's
it's a lot to, put, it's a lot to like really put, like together, but I think it's just really a waiting game at this point to see how the actual, like, the case unfolds and all of that, since they're not done with it. And they had some like recent stuff come up with the case back in June, but other than that, I think like that it's going to become like an issue of like, the trademark laws here, and then there's also trademark issues going on in China with the metaverse and Web3. So I think it's just going to be a very bustling like issue that's going to like be resolved not even in the next year, like maybe like 2-3 years from now, as
So there's still
metaverse,
time.
as the technology grows and stuff. Like, but what's so funny is that that he was right, because after that, every other designer, every other like brand was submitting,
trademark.
filing trademark rights, right? Like digital trademark rights after that. Like they were quick with it. Like, and people were actually like chasing, like, oh, I could do that. Let me go do this to Gucci's name. Like,
Yeah.
it was insane. So
Right.
yeah, like I think real ownership I don't know. I think it's just gonna be really insane to see like, okay, what how much further is this gonna go? Like how much business is gonna mess up? So
And in Canada, they're coming out with new like laws around, what you're supposed to do online and like how we convey ourselves if you're an actual company. So I think until as an artist, I think you're pretty much going to be able to do whatever you want to do until they say stop. But if you're a corporation, you're going to have to be a little bit carefuler because you're going to get sued by Gucci.
That's true.
Or like somebody.
Yeah.
Everything nowadays seems to be automated. We have AI. We have Netflix telling you what to watch. We have Instagram telling you what clothes to wear. Everything is basically kind of set up for us to taste it. There's tastemakers, and we're the one tasting it. So we're pretty much automated to have our likes and our dislikes, our trends and our not trends. And that makes us kind of question, like, where does the creativity and the originality and like the thrive, I guess, in a sense, for like new things start? And then the kind of other side of like appropriation, stealing, AI is
Theft.
Where does I guess theft in a sense, but is it really? Like, where are the lines blurring now? Because even, I don't know if you've seen the TikToks lately, Ryan, of people using these AI machines where it's like Dolly AI 2 is out, and like a couple other ones are out. There's even music ones now. So you just type in your words and it shoots you out like a thing, right? So does that hinder our creative process? Or is that giving us more to pull from, I guess, is the main concept we can start off here.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
I don't know if you guys have seen like the whole, the people have been talking about like in the next few years or like when AI is like fleshed out or something, like somebody was like saying that like it's going to be legally deemed that like you really like it, like in court, you can't win against AI because it'll be like it's a self-automated like tool at that point because it's like basically like a brain, like it's using.
Well, say our phones are an extension of ourselves, right? So when you take somebody's phone and you actually strip everything, you can pull all the data out of it and essentially recreate yourself in a sense, and the things you like and the things you do and what you did and all of that stuff, right? Now imagine you have an AI to organize that, recreate that, and fill in the blanks, right?
Yeah.
You literally have a version of yourself, and then that gets a little scary because we all know how scary it is to give somebody else your phone, even swiping through photos in front of somebody else. Now, if you get taken to court, this perfect robot can literally tell you what you did, can't lie about it, show you what you did, can't lie about it, and actually automatically integrate who you are into a person.
It'll get to a point where it's like creating stuff, and basically like you really can't win against them like in court. Do you get what I'm saying? Because it's like all this information is already out there. Like I've just basically like automated and like formed it into this one thing. And if you're claiming that an AI machine replicated like the exact same thing, like you can't win. Like I want to read more into like like the guy who was saying it. It was like some like bearded guy, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I was just like, ooh, that's kind of scary. So then I just like logged off.
Well, yeah, because like they could technically frame, even AI could technically frame you. It just depends on the input that you're giving the AI, right?
Yeah.
Like if in the AI evil, it's evil, but if they made it pure good and it saw evil in you, it can dub you as evil or dub you as like a stealer or like as a bad.
But we'll still need a human to even process, like give them the information to process. So I don't know. I've just seen some things where it's like, oh, it'll get to a point where we don't even need to do that. Like it's all going to self function at some point. And like that's kind of scary.
That's some Black Mirror shit for real, right? Yeah, it's also like, let's say, not even like a AI version of you is like an AI lawyer, right? Like, how can you go against that when they can extrapolate and calculate every outcome so fast? They can say the right thing. And also, I guess in the future, it's about how much power we give AI and how much authenticity we value in what AI say, right? Or else there's literally no way out. AI wins 100% of the time. It's computer. No way we can win against that.
Slippery slope. Like I think it was AI that figured out there was multiverses like last month or something. Like AI is figuring out so many things. It's curing diseases. It's figuring out the human genome. It mapped out the rest of the human genome or something like that. Like it's doing things that we shouldn't possibly be able to do. Technically, we haven't been able to figure it out. But in doing so, will it create a solve for itself, right? Like if our problem is we can't control it, does it value humans more than its own life, right? To keep humans and humanity alive, or will it kill it off?
I got this like super unrelated thing about AI. I think it's not fashion at all. It's like
Wait.
it's an AI theory where I think it's called Roko Basilisk. I don't know if you've heard of it. But also Loki, I don't know. It's like the way they have to do it is like I have to ask, do you want to be let in on this information? Because like info hazard type theory. Can we
record it then? We can put this on the internet, right? Warning label, guys.
You can clip it or whatever. It's just a thing that I want to share. I just want to share. So basically, it means that if you right now know that there's an AI, let's say 50, like there's an all-powerful AI in the future being created, and that AI will hunt down everyone that didn't help make it happen. So basically, if you know that this AI will exist in the future and you didn't help make it, when it happened, it will hunt you down. So would you contribute to but if you make it and you contribute to the effort to make this AI happen, it will just let you go and spare your life. So now that you know that there's a possibility of this thing happening, would you contribute to making it happen?
Kind of sounds fascist to me. It's like kind of very like, I don't. It's like an evil dictator in a sense. You know what I mean? And I guess.
Yeah, it is.
I would probably, that's the thing. Humans want to like self-save themselves, and if there's no way that like I would be able to fight it, right? Like the automatic conclusion would be to give in. But in an essence, like is my life that important to like help stop an overpower being?
But I guess if everyone just ignored it, it will never happen, eh?
But would everyone ignore it?
That's the thing. That's like the dilemma.
You see, now I feel like you shouldn't have told us this information, because now that we know, now that we're like aware, because I feel like if we weren't aware, maybe our lives would be spared, you know, like in everything. That's why
I say it's info hazard. So
yeah.
So it's like this like thing.
I mean, it's public information. Elon Musk has talked about it, so we can keep this recording. But
we're all adding to the algorithm, so technically we're helping AI anyways. So
yeah, exactly. We're building up data, so yeah, our lives are spared. Okay, but have you watched the French movie Big Bug?
Oh,
you need to watch it.
Yeah, and like, can you actually? I guess this goes back into our last topic, like digital appropriation. But like, if you were to say, let's say, even on TikTok, right? Let's say somebody made a TikTok video and it's trending, and it's doing really good. You take that video, right, and you repurpose it for your own, right? You use pretty much the same language, the same words, whatever, you post it, yours does just as good. Now, is that copying, or is that just a part of the algorithm and the name of the game?
That's copying, but it's also name of the game. Like, it's copying, we all know it's copying, but there's nothing we can do about it. Just like the independent designer type situation.
Like somebody like talking about like saying the exact same words as you and like on the same topic? Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah. Like, that's straight up copying.
You know, you haven't spent hours coordinating and creating your own script and like creating your research and stuff. You know, and you're not actually putting effort in because the algorithm has already given it to you.
Yeah, you just be.
Yeah, but it's also like you're also chancing on the fact that those who watch your version of the video haven't seen the original. Because if they've seen the original, they were like, "Oh, you're copying," and they're like, "You know what? Screw you."
Or are they just consumers and they just want more of the same thing?
I think the culture right now, we are really aware of who's copying who, and then we really want to punish those who just straight up copy. It's a really prominent thing on TikTok. As soon as something look alike, be like, he did it first, you were copying. Boop, boop, boop. And then, yes.
I love that, like, you mentioned, like, the social stigma behind copying, because this moves us into the next part. It's, like, patterns and materials, right? So we bring into, like, this cultural piece of, like, you know, patterns, materials, textiles, stuff like that, right? Now, where does appropriation on that start? Let's say, like, what's your take on, like, appropriation of cultural textiles, right? And patterns even, right? And, like, are fabrics, like, a passed-down cultural expression, right? And, like, of resources, of all colors, all these things, right? But who's to say who actually owns that, right? Because I'm of mixed descent, right? So it's kind of like...
Yeah, a really interesting thing to explore in terms of like appropriation of fabrics and textile, because let's say like tartan, right? It's a historically Scottish thing, right, for clans, and it represents something, right? But it looks really good though. I am a huge fan of tartan, right? And then we see Vivienne Westwood, not Scottish. We see Burberry as a company, not Scottish, registering their own pattern of tartan and then sort of pawn it off as, oh, it's part of England's history, UK history, so it's okay. But it's not, right? It's completely different. So for some people, it's okay to so-called borrow other people's aesthetic or cultural aesthetic and then make something off it and then say, oh, we're just appreciating it, but here, buy it for $60, right? And then for someone, which I recently interacted with when I made the video on how to register your own tartan, and then I mentioned that I would never actually dare to register my own tartan. And then also in terms of like, also another fabric that I talked about is kente and adinkras from Ghana, which is like something that has a long history as well. And I am sure if there's no one appropriating it already in the future, there's going to be someone be like, oh, kente looks good, let's make something off of it, and actually disregard the history and narrative of it, right? And just it's just, in my opinion, no matter how much you say you appreciate it, or no matter how much you say, oh, I'm doing it from a standpoint of appreciation, and you are profiting off of it, and you're not part of the culture, at least, or from that country of origin, it's just not like it just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, like, you know, not to be a dramatic Nigerian, but like, you know, knowing, you know, our like West African culture and just like the Ghanaian culture, that is what they started with, you know, like what they started from. Like that's part of like the foundation. Like kente cloth is part of their foundation. So like, how do you take someone's foundation and you like pull from it and you're profiting from it? And there's nothing going towards the appreciation of like that culture, right? Like there's nothing going towards like helping those people in any way or benefiting them. Like that part is always going to, you know, like consistently be an issue. But then what I've noticed is that, like, you know, there's so many, you know, influencers and like, or quote unquote influencers and people talking about it, talking about this issue of appropriation constantly and like debunking people who are like wearing it. So like, I mean, we don't know where it's going to go in the future on like how that division is going to be for people not to use it for profit. But I like that there are people fighting for it not to be used in that way. So, because it's always been an issue. Like I know there's this one brand. They're not a big brand, I believe. I know like ASAP Ferg. No, not ASAP Ferg. ASAP Rocky wore one of their pieces one time, and they were basically mocking the struggle of like Russian, like, you know, like people in Russia that like they're basically like they're lower economic, socioeconomic communities, right? And how they essentially dress and like how they have to dress in cold weather while struggling within, you know, that economy, right? And they basically made a whole collection out of it. And like the scarf was like $600, $800. And I'm like, you're literally promoting something that people struggle with every day, you know, and like selling it to people. But this has become a, you know, such a pattern like that. So I don't know.
Yeah. Like boro, you know, like Japanese boro garment, right? That's really popular right now because of capital. And then we see a lot of smaller fashion companies, mid-sized, trying to like push that design as well, boro, without actually knowing anything about boro. They just copy the aesthetic, and that's disrespectful to me, right? As you said, like, who the fuck are you to just do that after all these people from the past through time invented it, optimized it to their own standard and whatever, you know, living condition they were in to create something iconic, to create something historic, and now you just take it and sell it. So it's disrespectful to me.
Yeah, it's definitely disrespectful, but then it brings into question like product and commerce, right? And trade. It's like people, if there's a buyer, people are going to sell it, right? And it's like up to like, I guess, the people to kind of like oppose it in a way. And it's super interesting to me because like a great example for me is like, so Indigenous culture in Canada is actually super popular in places in Germany. Like in like the 70s and 80s, like Germany would like have like like powwows with like teepees and stuff, and like they have all these like indigenous like streamlined style art and stuff, and the concept was that they were appreciating, not appropriating, and it's like, well, are you like, you know, what's really the situation here? And it's hard because I know a lot of people that actually like they're indigenous and married somebody that was German or somebody of like European descent, and they're like, no, they knew about indigenous culture and like the history and like they appreciated it, right? And I guess it's hard to define a line between appreciation and appropriation when you're not of the culture, right? It's like, and then that creates a huge barrier, right? Because like, let's say I wanted to use an African print, or if I wanted to use an indigenous print, right? Technically I'm both, so technically I could use both, right? But somebody else around the world that's fully from that culture might say, you're not allowed to use it because you're not fully there, you weren't raised there your whole life, or whatever the reasoning may be, you know? There's always those.
I think that's
No,
sorry to cut you off, sorry. No, I think that's where collaboration comes into play, right? Like a really effective way to combat this, which is if you actually have the heart to learn the history, or to, on one hand, really want to use this fabric, on the other hand, really want to show people that you're not just copying or just taking it from them. Collaborating with local artists or someone that's an expert in that area would be something to give you more credibility on this project. And I guess help people understand why you're using it, and then people may be like, okay, you're respectful of this, okay, yeah, I feel better about this. I guess in the end it's about how you portray your approach to cultural elements all around the world when you're not from there.
Now,
right?
Could you consider that just marketing and research, so money could fix that problem? In
a way,
yes. You can always just hire a person that looks like that and just be like, there you go, it's represented.
That's why I feel like some of it is intentional. Like, you could hire someone who looks like that, yet they choose not to, and hire somebody, you know, that isn't, you know, like, I feel like it's just like, you can literally pay them the same thing, but you can get someone who's basically from that culture, and like, you know, you, as long as you make sure like the campaign, the whatever it is, same, like, you know. There
should be like a governing body for like garments. Wouldn't that be like easier? So like a representative.
But they have but these teams have like, most teams have like a design team. Like, design team does, they have experience in the specific things. Design team, someone has a specific experience with shoes. Someone has specific experience in hats, jewelry, and they should have that knowledge. But if they do not, then they should take the initiative to go to someone who does, to make sure they do not muddy the waters or start a flame that could potentially hurt that whole brand as a whole, you know? So those little things all play a part together. So, I know, like.
But does art have to be that defined and that restricted as a person that's creating something for the world? I mean, right?
I don't think definition is a thing when it's obvious. Like I think it's not about like the little distinctive things that they like that are done. It's like the obvious things that happen at fashion shows, like when they are obviously appropriating this one, culture or something like that. It becomes so obvious, not like a little necklace, like a boyo tie or whatever, you know, type of like tie or necklace that is representative of like something else that they can like finesse and put some meaning behind. I'm not giving them ideas right now, but the obvious things that they do, like, it's like, oh yeah, y'all really thought through this whole thing. This whole 20 type person design team literally said, oh, we're gonna do this and make the whole thing that, and then you just don't put somebody from that culture there, like as the model, and then you send the model up. Like,
well, what I find funny is that people try to say that like they're appropriating like fetish culture, and they're appropriating like these like subcultures of like society.
Those are social those are social cultures, not
that's where I draw the line. Like when I saw like some videos about Kanye West and Demna are appropriating fetish culture, and they're really like pushing. Julia Fox is like appropriating fetish culture. I'm just like, what? Like, she's probably not perfect. Like, I don't know how you can appropriate a job that is pretty much in every society. You know what I mean? Unless it's like taboo in that society or whatever, right? Yeah. That's like a very, or like I understand, like, what's the thing when people say they're trying to entice like gay people. So it's like they try to put like girls kissing on the show to make sure that like gay people are watching, whatever. They're like adding these extra
Oh yeah, on
elements
purpose. Yeah. To
on
get
purpose
attention.
to get attention, right? And it's like, well, yeah, there is no meaning, there's no value behind it. You're just using it as like a product, right? And I guess that is the distinguishing factor between appropriation and appreciation is whether it's art
Yeah.
or product,
But
right?
what can we say when people don't value other people? Like it's that
Gun
becomes
'em.
like that's what I'm saying. Like people really don't value, like people don't value the next man, their neighbor. They don't value people, you know? Those like golden rules have like once money is involved, once they see some like coin, it's like, oh, screw you. Like I'm gonna get my check. Like that's what it becomes. But when you really value people and their culture and like what really makes them from birth, you know, that they dedicate their life to as part of their culture, then like when you actually value those people, then we would get somewhere clearer. But what can we expect from that, you know? So
Exactly. So now that we talked about digital fashion a little bit more and ownership and appropriation and stuff, do you think that digital fashion can replace fast fashion? So, like, is it viable in creating more, or is it creating more cost to like innovate and to add all these different things in here? And I guess Elizabeth can quickly, like touch on a topic there. But basically, yeah, we're growing at a faster pace. We have AR filters that can replace, fast Shein fashion, right? We have, let's say, like AI algorithms that can predict the next style future, right? Like, are we naturally on course to fully digital fashion?
Okay, what's the incentive of people buying digital
Well, I
fashion?
think ownership is a huge part of it because the digital fashion doesn't actually have to be digital. We can have like little chips in clothing and stuff like that, or have it like ownership on the blockchain and things like that. So that's for big fashion brands. That's a good one. For small fashion brands, ownership is also a good one. And that's like kind of where we're sitting right now. And I guess also whittling down on our fabric consumption and bringing stuff to market quicker because we have these algorithms, because we can make it digitally first.
Okay, so because I don't think it can replace fast fashion. Fast fashion itself is such a crazy business model that I don't think anything can replace it. But I think digital fashion can combat it for sure. It can certainly make people realize, okay, this and that fast fashion can slowly be more moderate and or even die down with the rise of digital fashion. I do believe that can happen, but I don't think anything can ever replace fast fashion because of what it can actually. If we don't look at the ethical part of fast fashion, right, all the things that it provide consumers are actually utopic. But the reason why it's so bad right now is because of all the illegal stuff behind it, all the waste and everything, right? If we don't see that, fast fashion is the best thing ever happened to us. So I don't think it can replace fast fashion. But as I said, it can certainly combat it in a good way and make people actually, give people time to appreciate what they buy instead of buying 10,000 pieces in a span of 2 months and then just I don't know what they do with those clothes, to be honest.
It gives people another option to think about and question. What is fast fashion? Most people don't even know.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really have any answer. He answered that very well. Very well, actually. I mean, yeah, like you kind of said some of the things I would say would combat it is, like it's going to essentially alleviate it. Like it's not going to full on replace it. You can't really replace like a monster or like just like destroy like something that's been created for a span of like for so long, and that means it's like that's like getting rid of like a whole separate industry itself when there's so much money coming in and so many people, so many jobs like at stake at that point, right? But implementing NFTs into bigger labels and also like just like like fast fashion brands altogether. Well, actually, I wouldn't suggest that. putting RFID tag or any tag on fast fashion stuff. That's not going to last. But for bigger labels that actually provide quality in their stuff, like, yeah, that can definitely alleviate like parts of production that are affecting, environmental issues, that are affecting social issues and, economic issues, things like that.
Well, Ryan, it was so nice having you. Is there any last things you want to say?
Thank you so much. No, besides, thank you for having me. It was such a pleasant conversation to have with you guys, and also indirectly teaching me more about digital fashion and what pastel is. And no, thank you for the invitation once again. And I would love to in the future come back on again if that's possible.
We'd love to do some TikToks with you. Teach us the ropes.
Hell yeah, I would love to do that too.
Before you go, our last, I'm just going to ask you this one question, right? So basically you answer with a pitch that it's like you actually like, this is what you would do to like make this happen, or like, nah, you don't want to be a part of it, you want to ditch it. Okay, so fashion right, but the professors are TikTok influencers. Hashtag TikTok fashion TikTok uni.
Ditch. Do not even let any other people hear this idea. Ditch. I'm just gonna say this. 90% of fashion TikTokers. I mean, I'm not gonna talk about the people that base their content around outfits, because it looks good, but it's not necessarily like educating. I mean, you can educate style, but I don't believe in that. But let's say for those who about information like fashion history or runway stuff like that, a lot of people do it for attention. They don't actually take the time to understand the stories behind. And I didn't even notice this before. And the more people I meet, and then they start to point out, oh, do you see this? It's actually wrong. They don't even know. And the comments don't even know. The consumers don't even know, because they don't have the integrity to actually fact check it, because it's just a TikTok, right? So if they're school
don't even
professors,
give them the audacity. People do have the audacity.
No, I wouldn't even become like a professor myself, even though I think I like take research seriously, because professors in fashion school just have a different, I mean, call them old school, call them whatever, right? But they do have a better understanding of how the industry work, and the thing they teach you or how they word some things are actually preparing you for the industry, not just to let you in on knowledge. All right.
No,
I hope that's
that
how
sounds
they operate.
highly accurate.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
So thank you so much for that insight. That was actually like, I was like, I wonder if you'll pitch it, because like it might work if they were like, maybe, but like, no, I definitely.
Maybe.
Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
You too. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Well, that's all for today. We really appreciate Ryan for coming to join us. Make sure to follow him at Ryan Yip Fashion on Instagram and on TikTok. And we will see you guys next week. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, and listen in every Friday. Bye.
See ya.